Good evening. Okay. We'd like to welcome you to the February 1st Council of Governments meeting. First order of business, we'd like to ask that we do the Pledge of Allegiance. If you please stand. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
In advance of our first order of business, I'd like to welcome our new elected members of the Board of Directors. Ladies first, Linda Herman from the City of Angels Camp, Gary Tofanelli, and Dennis Mills from the Board of Supervisors. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you. The first order of business we have is the consent agenda. Consent agenda items are expected to be routine and non-controversial and will be acted upon by the council at one time without discussion. Any council member, staff member, or interested party may request that an item be removed from the consent agenda for further discussion. I've already been asked to have number 6 pulled, the Regional Transportation Plan flyer. Are there any other items being asked to be pulled at this time? Council?
I'd like to pull item number 1 simply because I wasn't here for this meeting, so I have no idea if they're correct or not.
Okay. Anyone from the public? Seeing none, do we have a motion to approve items 2 through 5?
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Unity, seconded by Councilmember Tofanelli. All those in favor?
Aye.
Approved 7-0. Item number 1 was pulled. Is there any further discussion on the minutes, noting that Supervisor Tofanelli was not here?
Yeah, I will abstain. So.
I will abstain.
Okay. Seeing that, do we have a motion to approve item number 1, the Council of Governments regular meeting minutes of December?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Meades, seconded by Councilmember Fummendorf. All those in favor?
Aye.
Approved. 4-0-3. 3 abstentions. Okay. Item number 6, the correspondence of the Regional Transportation Plan. Melissa, let me have you take the floor on that.
Thank you. We'd just like to take this opportunity to highlight the upcoming Regional Transportation Plan workshop that is taking place tomorrow in San Andreas at the Town Hall. I'd like to introduce to you Jeff Schwein with Green Dot, and he will be participating and leading the workshop tomorrow. So he'd just like to highlight some of the benefits of your attendance at this meeting and some of the things that we hope to accomplish at this meeting tomorrow. Jeff?
Great, thanks a lot. So my name is Jeff Schwein. I'm the consultant hired to develop the Regional Transportation Plan, which is a long-range planning document which has a 20-year planning horizon. So these documents are redone, updated every 4 or 5 years. In this case, it's going to be 4 years. So a few things that we're talking about at the workshops. We've been doing community outreach since last fall, where we had a workshop and solicited input from the community. We have a survey that's out there to take just to get people thinking and talking about transportation projects that could potentially get into the Regional Transportation Plan. In order for a transportation project to receive federal or state funding, it needs to be in this plan. So we kind of want to put the kitchen sink in there, and we're trying to develop projects to do that right now. So we had a workshop last night in Angels Camp, and we are just going through the project lists, the policies, and the financial projections that my team has developed for the Regional Transportation Plan for the 20-year horizon. So tomorrow we're going to be doing that here in San Andreas. A couple things I want to point out. There's over 300 projects that have been identified. Some of these obviously are in really good shape to where the project has been developed enough that it can reasonably assume funding within the next 10 years, and those projects will go on a certain list that's kind of ready to go when we get funding. Then there's projects that are less developed that are sort of the long-term list that will take over for the projects in the short-term list that get prepared. So over 300 projects requesting about $500 million in revenue. Now the projections that we have over the next 20-year period is $350,000 worth of revenue. the $500,000 worth of project needs is actually quite low because a lot of these projects in the outer years don't even have cost estimates associated with them. So one of the things that we're trying to do with this regional transportation plan is really highlight the disparity between the available resources to spend on all of the transportation projects and the amount of projects that we really have to do. And some of these are immediate projects. They're safety projects, they're pavement projects, they're safe routes to school projects, you know, really critical projects to the region. So we're trying to figure out how to tell this story to the state and to the feds that we don't have enough money, we need more, and so we're coming up with some creative ways to do that. Three of the ways that we're trying to tell this story in the regional transportation plan are that we're going to highlight some of the successes of project delivery. Now, if you don't deliver projects, you can't ask for more money. You can't say we need a bunch of money and then, you know, fail to deliver your projects. You have to have project success and say, hey, we already built that, we need more. They say, oh gosh, well, we have some more. So this is one of the things we're trying to address. The other is to improve project development, because a lot of the funding that's in the future that's coming is discretionary grant type funding, and it's competitive. And if you don't have a solid foundation and a good argument for why your project needs to move forward and show them that the community, everybody wants this project, then you're not going to get the funding. So part of the thing with this regional transportation plan is we're trying to build those foundations of the projects. And the other is to pursue the grant resources that are available. There's a few kind of momentum items in the state and the feds to improve the transportation funding, and Melissa and the COG is really working on a statewide level to help get more funding for the region, but we're kind of trying to spin our argument for the projects in the regional transportation plan as best we can to capture as much funding as we can. So if you guys are available tomorrow night at 6 o'clock at the town hall, we're going to have a meeting and talk more about the projects in depth and about the whole regional transportation plan. Thanks for your time.
Thank you very much. That was a consent item, so I presume that we should go ahead and approve the flyer as a consent item. So moved by Councilmember Muniz. Second by Councilmember Mills. All those in favor?
Aye.
And number 6 as well. Agenda item number 7, public comment. Public comment is limited to 5 minutes per person. Comments shall be limited to items that are within the subject matter jurisdiction of the council and not on the posted agenda. Do we have any public comment this evening? Okay, seeing none.
Seems like at a board meeting.
No, it doesn't.
Item number 8, the minute order approving the nomination and appointment of one citizen member for a 2-year term.
Staff recommends the council hear a presentation from the interested citizen member applicant. Staff further suggests consideration of the applicant for appointment of a 2-year term. At this time, I would like to turn it over to the elected members on our COG board, 2 from the Board of Supervisors and 2 from the City Council, who will be responsible for voting for the community member. We have one application that was received according to the deadline, and that's our returning citizen member, Justin Cantillano.
I didn't quite get that.
We've also, just in case for simplification, provided you with sample interview questions, should you be interested in asking those questions of Justin. But at this time, we can turn it over to Justin, who has prepared a brief statement, if that's okay with the council.
Prefer to hear his statement first.
Okay. Hello, everybody. My name is Justin Catalano. I thoroughly enjoyed serving on this committee for the past year. The previous year, I attended all the meetings just as an observant and to learn how the process worked. So my attendance has been perfect since December of 2014, and So, a little bit about my background in transportation. I have a bachelor degree in automotive technology management from Pennsylvania College of Technology. I'm a very active traveler. I drove over 30,000 miles in my car this year, about 6,000 miles on my motorcycle, probably around 15 to 18,000 miles in airplanes, and a couple hundred miles on trains, not that many miles on buses, a few. Throughout my traveling the past year, I like looking at different transportation projects, and something I noticed on one of my trips back east to New Jersey and New York, they're redoing the Route 1 and Route 9 bridge on the Turnpike, and it is very similar to the New Bay Bridge. I thought that was pretty interesting how they took the same type of engineering and started using that over there. On a trip to Montreal, I was using their subway, and I found it very interesting that instead of using train wheels, they actually used rubberized wheels, car tires, and that was holding the train between the tracks, which I thought was pretty neat. Interesting enough, that night that I was on those trains, I had to take a detour and go about an hour and a half out of the way because one of those tires actually exploded and ruined the track. So maybe those aren't the best things for transportation. But it was pretty neat to see that. Also, their airport security was incredible. They were very organized. Unlike a lot of the airports in America right now, they're kind of confused. They had a very efficient way of getting the people through the security line, which was pretty neat. A local story. So last April, I live on Winton Road, and I heard that you can take Winton Road all the way over and it connects to Route 4. So I tried to do that on my motorcycle in April, and unfortunately when I got to the top of the mountain, there was a guy stuck in a Toyota Tacoma in about 4 feet of snow, and I didn't realize there was still snow at the top of our mountains in the middle of the spring. So that was an unsuccessful trip, but in the middle of the summer I decided to go and do it again in my truck, and I made it all the way across, and it is an amazing shortcut to get to Big Tree State Park, and I look forward to doing that in the summertime. Let's see what else. I've read up on our California transportation plan from Caltrans, so I'm kind of in line with what their goals and ideas are for the coming years. And I just want to say I'm a very dedicated person. I've shown persistence attaining this position, and I'd like to continue it. And I think I have the knowledge and experience and the drive to continue to perform and do a good job as a member of this council. So I hope that I get reelected.
Thank you, Mr. Catalano. I remember when you first applied. I was in the audience, as you recall. And I understand that you do have some transportation background. Could you explain a little bit more about what that was?
Okay, so I started my career as a technician. I went through the Ford Asset program, and that was basically a program which you go to college, you're working towards an associate degree, and every other semester they put you into a Ford dealership, and you, for the first, for the first 2 years that you're in there, you're basically an apprentice, and then when you get out, you're a Ford certified technician. And so that's where I started my career. I was a mechanic for about 7 years. From there, I went back to school. I got my bachelor degree in management, and from there, I worked for New Jersey Transit, and I was a supervisor of the bus mechanics for a couple years. I worked at numerous bus garages, generally supervised about 50 mechanics, and was in charge of a fleet of about 200 buses in each garage. Some of the garages were bigger, some of them were smaller, but the workload was intense and it was a fast-paced thing. And I guess, the rest of my experience is basically just personal experience with travel and just observation and just enjoying this industry and this business is what, keeps me going with it.
Thank you. As a member of the COG board now for the past year, do you feel that the challenges that you're comfortable with, how you'd handle those challenges that this position had?
Absolutely.
Okay. That's all I have. Thank you.
Other electeds?
I'm fine. I have his resume in front of me, so.
Yeah.
No questions?
Do we have a motion to appoint an elected?
So moved.
I
Second.
was- For a second?
There was a second from Councilmember
Okay.
Fuller. Any further comment from the electeds? Any further comment from the public? Do we have a motion from an elected or the electeds to vote, approving the motion to nominate Justin Candelano for a two-year term? I guess we're asking for the vote.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, approved 4-0. Justin, welcome back.
Thank you very much.
Here you can have him as a
Yeah, here's
souvenir.
a souvenir.
Agenda item number 9, a minute order approving the appointment of the chair for calendar year 2017. And with that, go back to you, Melissa.
Perfect. Staff recommends the council appoint the chair for 2017 calendar year. There are no specific council guidelines that influence or direct this decision. It is at the will of the council. At this time, I'll turn it over to the council for discussion.
I would like to continue to have John Gomes as the chair. I feel he's done an excellent job the past couple of years. He keeps the agenda moving in an appropriate manner, and he's very well versed on all of the items that we discuss.
I would second that.
Okay, thank you. Further discussion by the council?
I'm fine with it, John.
Public
Any
comment?
Public comment? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Item number 10, approving the appointment of a vice chair for calendar year 2017. Melissa, I'll let you.
Again, staff recommends the council appoint a vice chair for 2017. There are no policies that specifically direct this action. It is at the discretion of the board.
Any comment
See,
from the council on the appointment for a vice
Commissioner
chair?
Follendorf, you were vice chair before?
No, Justin.
Justin?
You were?
Yes.
Yeah. So, I nominate Justin to continue as vice chair of this board.
I'll second that. Any council comment? I'd like to say that I've enjoyed having Justin as the vice chair. I've served with him both on the executive management committee,
Public comments?
and I will, I'll ask for that in just a second. And that his interest and enthusiasm and willingness to spend the time researching and educating himself about the agenda items and issues that have come across the board. He's shown a very valid and very intense interest in it, so I would be happy to see him serve again as vice chair. Do we have any public comment regarding the vice chair nomination of Mr. Candelano? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Approve 7-0.
Thank
Justin,
you very
welcome back.
much. Very much appreciated.
Number Council agenda item number 11 is the wagon trail presentation by Matt Sauta. I'd also like to welcome Amber, who I think probably has another transportation traffic story she could provide us this evening. So, Matt.
Sure, absolutely. So, thank you, Chair and council members. I don't know if Melissa, if you want to do an introduction,
Sure,
you want me to go ahead?
sure.
Do you want me to go ahead and do this? Or?
Perfect. At this time, I'd like to introduce Matt Sawtell with Drake Haglin Associates. He's been the county's project manager on the Straight Route 4 Wagon Trail project. I'd like to commend Matt and his team, first off, for their management of this project. They have spent the last 4 years working with the county and the Council of Governments and the property owners, and I think been very successful in their efforts. This presentation is not meant to present new information on the project. It's meant to brief the council on where we are to date on the Wagon Trail project. We have notified the property owners that we have met a critical milestone where we've completed the environmental documentation on the project, and we'll begin planning for the design phases of the project. So at this time, I'd like to turn it over to Matt so that he can give you the history, the background, sort of where we've been and what we've been working on the past few years.
Thanks, Melissa. So, good evening, Chair, council members. You kind of stole most of my thunder. I didn't realize you were going to go through most of those things. That's okay, but that's all right. You know, actually, I think after watching Supervisor Catalano up here, I think I actually have an easier presentation than being on the hot seat of being grilled about my my qualifications here. So, actually, I'm really happy to be here tonight. I've been before this council a number of times over the past 4 years. As Melissa mentioned, I was hired in late, I think, December of 2012 to essentially augment county public works staff to manage this project. And so over those 4 years, we've done a number of presentations for this council. I've seen some of you before the city council and board of supervisors and other areas as well. So as Melissa mentioned tonight, I'd like to go through just briefly some of the project background. I know most of you, some of the names on this council I recognize from the past have been involved in this project and are probably well aware of it. But the Wagon Trail project, realignment project, State Route 4 realignment, essentially goes from Bonanza Mine over on the Copper side to the east over to Stockton Road, just a little bit short, about 1 mile short of Angels Camp, the 449 intersection. The goal of this project, as many of you know, from Caltrans' perspective, the goal of this project is to improve operations through here. For most of you that live here, drive this on a regular basis, operations to us means making this a little safer for all of us to drive this. I mean, that's the reality of what we're trying to accomplish with this project. The existing alignment out there right now is what we would consider an unengineered alignment. It doesn't meet the current day standards for sight distance, for stopping distance, all the things that you would need on a road of this type. So we have gone through, since 2012, we took some of the original alignments, and as many of you may recall, this started out with probably about 20 or so alignment alternatives. It looked like a spaghetti mess of all different options going to the north, to the south. One of the first things we did in 2012, we went out and talked to a lot of folks, a lot of property owners, met with them, really to try to take all those different alignment alternatives and try to refine it into a few alternatives, maybe 2 or 3 alternatives that we could carry forward that were viable alternatives to study in the environmental process. And so that's what we ended up doing. We ended up refining the 2 alignments into, let's just call them the blue and the red alignment alternatives. The red alignment alternative, you can see, uses a lot of the existing improvements that are out there. You can kind of see in the very top middle of the screen where that red alignment alternative goes and uses the existing improvements that were constructed over at Pool Station Road. The blue alignment goes a little further south, and it doesn't utilize those utilize as much of the existing road improvements that are out there today. So the process actually started well before 2012. This process started with Caltrans back in the early 2000s. They did a project initiation document, and they do this original project study report. And that went through a lot of preliminary studies until the point in 2012 where the new team picked it up, and again, it's initiated what we call the project approval and environmental documentation phase. That's Caltrans lingo for getting the project cleared through the environmental phase. So one of the first things we did, and you see that in blue up there, we worked with a lot of owners to obtain permission to get on their properties and conduct our environmental and engineering studies. We were successful in doing that. We then took those and compiled those into studies, which then takes time to make it through the Caltrans review process. Once we had those, we had a draft environmental document which we released in late 2015. And so for the past year, since that document has been released, we've been addressing comments in the document. Probably more importantly, we've been working with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service through negotiating the mitigation required on this project for various species. And so that was finalized actually in late November this year, and Caltrans signed off on the environmental document in late December. I think it was December 29th. They actually officially signed off on the project approval environmental document. So that's a huge milestone that we're here tonight to definitely let you know, and we're getting ready to send out a newsletter to folks as well to let them know that this has been completed. Tonight, what I want to talk a little more about then is how did we get to that approval process, what alignment was selected, and then we'll talk a little more about what are the next steps to expect in this. So with this, as I mentioned, and I'm not going to go through all these, this was just purely a graphic put together to try and demonstrate the amount of outreach that's been done on this project. All those different points on there are points that we either held a community workshop, public meeting, one-on-one property owner meetings, presentations for the Board of Supervisors, presentations for this council, presentations for city as well. So there's been quite a bit of outreach along the way to this project to get to where we are today with the document. The environmental studies that we completed with this project, again, I'm not going to read through the entire list, but we've conducted all the required studies to complete the environmental documentation. So when we get ready to select the alignment, this is what really a lot of people want to know. How are you going to select that alignment? These are the factors, the primary factors that we use in selecting this. One is we use all the findings from all the environmental studies we did. Which alternative has the least impact to the environment? Two, we'll look at the project cost. We'll look at also the ability of each alternative to build in phases, because again, I'll get to this in a second, but the cost of constructing either alternative is more than this region has in any typical state transportation funding cycle. So we have to be able to build this and have a project we can build in phases. One of the more important things that factors into the alignment selection as well is what kind of comments we receive back from the public as well as from your elected bodies. And that's where we kind of finished off. When we completed the draft environmental document phase, we took the public comments, we went to all the different, we went to this council, we went to the Angel City Council as well as the County Board of Supervisors, asking for concurrence on the recommendation for the alignment alternative. And all three were in concurrence on the alignment alternative that was recommended. And the alternative 2 was selected, and alternative 2, when we looked at the environmental findings for this, alternative 2 really had the least amount of environmental impacts. We had 16% less oak tree impacts, 29% less farmland, 18% less right-of-way needed for alternative 2, and then overall less impacts to the overall natural environment as well. We talked about cost. Alternative 1 is estimated to be about $91 million total, and alternative 2 is approximately $76 million total to implement. And again, alternative 2 really allowed us to build this in multiple phases. I'm going to go to this graphic. You can see the blue alignment, how if you don't use any of the existing improvements, you essentially have to build from Bonanza Mine all the way to Appaloosa as one phase. There's no building part of that in between. You need a connection to both. And likewise, then your phase 2 would be from Appaloosa all the way east to the end of the project. So you essentially take that $91 million, and let's just say for the sake of this meeting, you would have to have at least $46 million in each phase to build it. It's quite a bit. The red alignment alternative, because it uses Pull Station Road and because it uses a lot of the existing alignment, it gives us a lot more opportunities to break that apart into phases that we can bite off and we can actually implement. And so what I did is, this is just a breakdown of from Bonanza Mine essentially to, through the project, but you can see that the western segment You can see there's multiple phases in there. You can build in phase A from Bonanza Mine all the way up to Pool Station. A phase B could be from Pool Station to Appaloosa. There's the middle segment and the eastern segment as well. And you could even break that even further apart if we're looking just in the area of Pool Station Road. And the reason I'm focusing a little bit on Pool Station Road, for those of you that are familiar with this, that is really where we think we can get the most, let's say, bang for the public's dollars. If we have limited dollars to spend on this, we want to try to hit the areas that we're going to get the most benefit from. And Pool Station Road in that area over there has the most accidents. And so we focus a little bit on that, and we can break that apart probably into even more phases. The first phase, segment A, could be from Bonanza Mine a little bit east of that through the existing section, and segment B can pick up from there all the way to Pool Station Road. We can even break apart in segment D the Appaloosa Road intersection alone, because that is another area of focus that's very difficult. Anyone that's ever pulled out of Appaloosa Road, you know, and you can just see the footprint of what people do out there, because when you're pulling out of Appaloosa Road, you can't see to your right, you can't see to the east. And so a lot of folks will take on the shoulder all the way up to a higher point where you have that visibility. And of course, that's the whole point of this project, and that's a really good example of what we're trying to accomplish with this project, is providing that adequate sight distance so that folks you can see far enough in each direction, you can make a good decision on when to pull out, and also if for the folks that turn through here as well and pass through here, they can make good decisions on that. So some of the public comments, really when we held the draft environmental document, the public hearing, a majority of the comments were in favor of alignment 2, which is the red alignment using the Pool Station Road improvements. And again, we went to the councils, the boards, all were unanimous for all alignment 2, which then led to the team, the project development team. We made a recommendation to the Caltrans management for alignment 2 based on these factors, and Caltrans accepted that and approved that on December 29th, I believe, of this year. So I've already gone over this. A lot of what we've been doing is working through with U.S. Fish and Wildlife this past year on getting that biological opinion issued on what that mitigation is going to be required for this project. So that was completed. Oops, I have December 30th. I knew it was in that time frame, right for the new year that they approved it. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about our next steps and funding strategy. Our strategy all along on this project is to get pieces shovel ready. When, I can tell you, I've been doing this for 20 plus years, and when you have a project that's shovel ready, although there may not be funding right now on the horizon, there are a lot of opportunities for transportation funding that come up. And I'll give you an example. Just last week, all of a sudden a meeting was called from Caltrans saying that the new administration wanted to know what projects does California have that are shovel ready that met certain criteria. And so, again, having the environmental cleared on this project was a huge milestone. Wagon Trail is actually closer to being shovel ready than a lot of projects in this region, in this entire valley region. So just another example of why our strategy all along has been, let's get this shovel ready. We also want to use the money to implement a phase of this and put a shovel in the ground and actually put a project in the ground. And so that's always been the strategy. That's what we're still doing. Our strategy at this point is to really advance that western segment to being shovel ready. And I say western segment, it's essentially everything you see here. So from Bonanza Mine all the way to Appaloosa, all 4 of those segments there, A, B, C, D, we want to design and get ready as much as possible for funding opportunities. And we have applied recently, I think within the last half year, we applied for the Fast Lane grant, which is through the federal government. We haven't heard back on the results of that. We are right now in the midst of preparing an application for a federal lands access grant, which we feel pretty good about our opportunity on that one. We ranked very well last time. We just didn't have enough local match money for them to select us. And I know that that's something that, hopefully I'm not stealing your thunder for this, but certainly Melissa and Chair Gomes, we worked together on it, going to the state, to the California Transportation Commission, and really lobbying them to give us local funds instead of federal mixed funds so that we could use that as our match to the federal funds. And they were successful in doing that this past year. So that really positions us now for this federal grant opportunity that we're applying for right now, because now we have leverage. Now we have non-federal money to use as our match, as our skin in the game for this. So again, I hope I'm not jumping into some of the things
Nope, it's okay.
you were
Go
going to say
ahead.
on this.
I'll highlight a few things.
Okay. And so that's, again, all part of the strategy. Again, the shovel ready, we've, on their end, on your end, you've certainly done your work to obtain non-federal money to use as our leverage for federal funding opportunities. And then we want to continue working with our Caltrans partners. This is a state highway, and so we have been working and lobbying Caltrans pretty hard to provide some funding for this. Although I want to make sure this is clear, this has not been approved. Caltrans staff has recommended to management that this portion of this be included in their SHOP program, which is their State Highway Operations Program. And so that, I believe, is going next year. Next year they'll create the new list for projects, and that has been recommended. So again, I think we have a lot of opportunities, especially now that the project has cleared the environmental phase and is more shovel ready. So with that, our final design activities based on our funding, we can begin in July of 2017. And that's our plan, is to start somewhere close in that time frame to begin that. Right-of-way activities, once we get into design, should start sometime in probably mid to late 2018. It will run for a year at least on the right-of-way activities, which should put us ready to put a shovel in the ground on a section of this, and whether that be from Bonanza Mine to Pool Station Road or Pool Station Road to Appaloosa, one of those two, we should be ready to put a shovel in the ground in 2020. Now, our funding is out a little bit further, maybe a few years after that, but again, our plan is to get this shovel ready, and we will go ask for that. If we're ready earlier, we're going to go ask that money earlier, and try to get, again, more funding opportunities by having a project that's ready to go. So with that, I don't know if you want to add in any more on the funding, or you want to just field questions?
Yeah, that would be great. So I think on the funding discussion, I would just like to commend the delegation committee that formed last year to advocate to the CTC on behalf of the State Route 4 Wagon Trail project. It was a great display, I think, of collaboration, advocacy, and partnership, and I think we were very successful in making our case. So I just want to commend that group, especially John and his leadership. And we are also fortunate to have former member Paul Stein joining us as well, and he was a great partner to bring to that team. I think another thing to highlight, as Matt had mentioned, Trump's call for project. I want to give my sincere thanks to our district partners, because they responded very quickly. They had an opportunity to propose 2 projects for that call, and State Route 4 was one of those projects, along with the Highway 99 widening. So I'm happy to have their continued advocacy and support. I think to follow up on Matt's comments about the potential that we have for funding through the innovative pilot project in the SHOP program was also a demonstration of our district's advocacy for our project. I think we've gone to work, we've demonstrated we have a capacity to deliver, and our partners are joining us in making sure that we're successful. So though that has not been approved by the CTC or Caltrans headquarters, it's just happy to know that we have our district advocating for us, and that could be money that benefits us locally. We have applied for the federal lands access funds, and as Matt said, we're hopeful that this will be our year. And I think that's it. I think that's all I have, unless you have any questions about the funding that we've programmed to the project so far. But we're happy to answer any questions.
Any council comments, questions?
Of course, this is my district, so I take it rather personally, because I do have to drive that road on a very regular basis, with Copperopolis being where it is. In fact, last week, we had a 4-car pile up there at Appaloosa, as you know. Do you foresee any challenges to the timeline that is currently in place, Matt, or do you think that we're going to be okay and not be surprised by anybody?
The timeline as far as delivering the project, designing, acquiring right-of-way, getting it shovel-ready, I don't see any problem with that timeline. That's pretty reasonable. I think the big unknown here is the funding. And so I think that, again, I think that your council has done a great job of teeing up funds to the best that they can. given your limited amount of the state share of transportation funding that you have, I think so far you've been able to leverage potentially, again, Caltrans hasn't approved this, potentially $10.5 million from Caltrans. We're asking for $16 million from the federal lands. So if these things do happen, I mean, that's incredible that you're able to leverage your small share of this, $5.5 million or so, into $26 million of outside federal and state funding for this. So those are the challenges. Those are really your largest challenges at this point. As far as the delivery schedule, like I said, I think I'm fairly comfortable with that.
Well, thank you for breaking this into phases, because as you know, that Appaloosa spot is a very, very hazardous location, along with once you leave Pool Station and move south or move towards Copperopolis and the ice, et cetera, that happens in there because it's continually wet.
Right around Hunt
So,
there.
my other question, and I know it may have been answered a long time ago, is that are we going to then abandon the old roadways back to the property owners where we are no longer in need of it?
Yes, that's the intent.
Okay.
I believe the way the process works exactly, maybe I shouldn't, you shouldn't quote me exactly on this.
No.
It's my understanding of the process, we went through this quite a bit as we were answering questions from the environmental, because many property owners had that same question. And I believe the county would have the first right of the state would offer it back to the county first. If not, if the county said no, that they didn't want that, then it would go to the underlying owners.
Okay, thank you for the clarity. That's all I have for now. Thank you for your work on this project to this point. It is a near and dear and 40-year view that I have on that, and glad to see that we're going to finally maybe get to some conclusion.
Good. Thank you.
Any other council comments?
I do. Is this, if it is built in the segments, once this thing is started, how many of those segments are going to be guaranteed funds?
Let me see if I understand your question correctly, because the only guaranteed funds we have right now are your share of the state transportation improvement funds, which I believe, as it was cut last year when the state was in their funding crisis, I believe you have about $5.5 million,
Sure.
roughly.
Actually, Matt, if you could take it back to the funding strategy
Sure.
and the phasing by segment. So as the council is aware, we have we had 6.8 million. We were cut 1.5 million. That brought us to 5.3. The county has contributed 1.5 in their RIP shares. So what we have funding for is the design of the entire western segment that you see, A through D. Then we have right-of-way programmed for the entire western segment, A through D. We've made public commitments to property owners that we would not acquire right-of-way for anything that we cannot reasonably foresee constructing. So at this time, the only construction funding that we have is that yellow area, segment D, Appaloosa Road intersection. And so we have enough funding to make those improvements. That was brought to us as a #1 local priority, that if we were to do anything on this highway, it would be to improve the access and the safety issues for the residents on Appaloosa Road. So that became our #1 priority for construction funding. And then as Matt said, we're working actively with Caltrans and our federal partners to leverage our existing investment for the entire western segment. But that is what we have on the books right now. Justin, does that clarify?
So essentially, segment D, if we do start that, that'll be the first that we start. Segment C, B, and A, are those not included in that funding? Essentially, that we still need to get the funding
We still
for
need
that.
construction funding for C, B, and A,
So there is
correct?
a potential that we could do segment D and then the rest of that project might not occur.
We would hope not. We're actively
Right.
and aggressively pursuing funding.
Right.
So, again, too, and I don't want to overcommit Caltrans. The staff has made the recommendation for the shop. I want to make that very clear. But that's $10.5 million. That $10.5 million would go directly to construction. And so, again, that was all part of the strategy, get this shovel ready. Yes, we can afford, with the money that you have right now, we can afford to handle the Appaloosa intersection. The intent would be then to take that $10.5 million, if we would receive it, and put it towards either segment C or continue on from the existing improvements over in A and head the other direction.
Very good. Clarity.
Thank you.
Okay. Any public questions? Matt, thank you again for another good and informative discussion.
All right, thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Matt.
Agenda item number 12, the county report.
Hello, Jeff Krovitz, Public Works, Calaveras County. There's a lot to report, but I don't want to take too much time. Do want to let the council know that burned trees from the Butte fire are actively being moved out of the fire area. All environmental documentation has been completed, and there's approximately 8,500 trees that will be moved out over the next, I'm guessing, 4 to 5 months. The county took a pretty heavy hit from the first set of storms, January 6th through the 11th, and I would assume that all of you here in the room were affected in one way or the other. What happened to county roads, we have 4 permanent closures right now where we have culvert crossings washed out. I have another 4 or 5 locations where I have culvert damage. The roads are not closed. There were approximately 120 trees that were knocked down in the storm. That's county-wide. Some of these trees that were knocked down in the storm are now buried under 4 to 6 to 10 feet of snow. So we may not be getting to those, but the roads are open with the trees buried. There were about 100 small slides along the sides of the road and about 3,000 new potholes that were brought up with the vast amount of water that we got. So with the blessing came the problems. The county declared a local state of emergency, and the state declared a emergency. Calaveras was one of the counties included, so that helps us with funding. Project sites have been reviewed with Cal OES and FEMA on the potential for a federal declaration, which has not happened and may not happen, but we are proceeding anyway. I have executed agreement with a contractor for emergency repair on one of our roads that, if not done, could wash out in the next rain event. And I am hoping, with fingers crossed, that by tomorrow evening we will be protected from high water and the road would remain in place. That's Old Gulch. So that's basically where my efforts have been for the last 30 days, or a little less than 30 days. And then continuing to work as much as I can with Jeff on the RTP and Melissa on our various projects. Any questions on any of what I've brought forward?
Only just a comment. Thank you for your work on Old Burns Ferry Road. I'm sure that was a miserable pothole to deal with and ongoing, because you were out there multiple times with the crews. So thank your crews for their work during this very difficult period.
I'll pass that on. Thank you.
I got one question. Is there any value to the trees that were cut down in the burn area? Is that the property owner's property, or is that county?
The trees that are on county right-of-way are county trees. The trees that are on private property adjacent to county roads that have the potential to fall onto county roads, the property owners have been contacted. 2/3 of them, there's just over 300 parcels that are affected, 2/3 of them have signed a right of entry that allowed us to go onto their property, do the environmental studies that were necessary, do the arborist surveying that was necessary, and to get onto the property to cut the trees. Once the trees are cut, they become county property. These trees then go to a debris management site. The current one is in Wallace, and it's the same debris management site that's been being used for a little less than a year for PG&E trees that have been moved. And from there, the trees are being either ground and hauled. The plan is that they'd be ground and hauled to a cogeneration facility to generate electricity, either for Sierra Pacific Industries or for a electrical generating plant. If there are further opportunities, which we think there are, for the trees to be utilized for timber operations, we can direct that work, hopefully, or another value for them post value is to grind them and then sell them for a chip material that's sold commercially. That will make itself clear to us as we go a little bit further along, but regardless, they do have some value. They have much more value than a bug tree. And the program that we're currently operating under and are being funded under is a combined FEMA and Cal OES program. The trees must be treated and disposed of, the final product.
Okay,
All right?
that's excellent. I also want to say, you guys have been doing a great job on Route 26 with the culverts and the rock work. It seems that some of those places that used to get washed out didn't wash out this storm that we've had.
Well, thank you for thanking me, but it's got nothing to do with county.
Oh,
Caltrans has been working on that from 5 or 6 days after the fire. As soon as the fire was out, they went to work on that, and they've continued. And they're continuing to take out bug kill trees. They took out a lot of fire kill trees and did a lot of drainage work because of the probability that it's proven itself out that our debris flows and our stormwater flows are going to be not only greater in volume, but greater in destructiveness because they're carrying more sand and sediment. But thank you.
Any further council comment? Any public comment?
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Doug. And item number 13, the transit report from the county.
Good evening, council. Happy New Year. Deborah Mullen from Public Works, transit manager. The big project we've been working on in recent weeks has been an overhaul of the transit system, design of all new routes and schedules of the deviated fixed routes, and that's been developed and redeveloped and gone back and fine-tuned to make sure that all the multiple pieces of that work together seamlessly to produce a more efficient transit system that brings more potential riders to the system, better connections, and therefore better efficiency for the system. So we're looking, the Board of Supervisors has approved that. We were going to make an effort to roll it out the first week of March, but it looks like we're going to hit the first week of April. With the exception of changes in the Saturday hopper or Saturday system, we'll start March, the first Saturday of March. And that's real special because it's going to be traveling to Arnold now, not just from Valley Springs to Murphy's. So fewer stops in Valley Springs because the total vehicle service hours will be the same, but now we'll be going up Highway 4 to Arnold. And anybody calls from Vallecito will be able to make a stop there, pick them up, take them in either direction. So the intercity service will also start in April, and that essentially, that's the service between San Andreas and Stockton, and just minor time point changes in that to assure better connections for the other routes so that people can use. More people in the county will be able to travel to services in Stockton or Linden if they have something there. Other than that, capital projects, PTMI SEA projects, ongoing bus stop improvement projects in various locations along the main routes. Those are ongoing and on schedule. The information system for the buses, the Where's My Bus app and all that, we're working on that, learning more about that all the time, and wish we had it today. We're still working on that. Cal OES projects, we have some communications problems, dead spots for our radio system that we still need to address, and possibly get some new facilities up. In partnership with CCWD has offered a good partnership, and some real estate on their towers that we can use, and some technical expertise that's greatly needed. Going forward, in our next meetings, we hope to bring you the mid-year performance report, hopefully at next meeting, and the local transportation fund claims. Be happy to answer any questions, and I hope to see you all on the bus.
Council, any questions? Any questions from the public? Okay.
Thank you, Deborah.
Agenda item number 14, Angels Camp City report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Dave Hannum, City of Angels. Just want to report on a couple of projects. At our next council meeting, I am taking 2 items, a relinquishment agreement for South 49 intersection and our Vallecito Bridge. And that'll be the last action for the actual 4 and 49 project in terms of relinquishment. So that project will hopefully be completed in terms of that. I'm also taking a co-op agreement for a project site report or project information document for our North Angels, our 4 and 49 as part of our partnership planning grant. So we're taking that to the council to cooperate with Caltrans and start that process. Last night I attended the RTP meeting with Jeff and Melissa, and we had a pretty small turnout, but there was a lot of questions. The people that did come had a lot of questions and had a lot of comments, so I think it was pretty good, and we're continuing to work with Jeff and Melissa on that project. The city had their Sustainable Communities workshop. We had our last public workshop that was attended probably by about 35 people, which was probably our biggest one actually, and it went well. We had a lot of comments from people. I think they got a much better understanding of what we were trying to do and how we were doing it, and I think that last public workshop really set the stage for the next set of stuff that's going to happen, which now the consultants are going to be taking the comments and huddling up for a couple months and putting the document together, and we'll be back out hopefully in May and to the Planning Commission in June to the City Council to complete that project. We also, of course, I can't think we didn't meet in January. So last month the city entered into a contract with Drake Hagman and Associates for our Angels Creek Trail and our 2 big sidewalk projects. And so we're having a kickoff meeting with them next week. And so we'll be starting blowing and going on that project as well. So I think that's all I can think of right now. So if there's any questions on any of our projects, we'll be happy to answer any questions or any comments.
Any council questions for Mr. Handheld?
All right.
Public questions.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dave. Mr. Baker. Caltrans report, item number 15.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Congratulations to everyone that's on the council that wasn't before, and for all the changes. Number 1, I had the mile marker I brought. Maybe not everybody's familiar with that. Just to give you the general idea with this isn't just Caltrans Slick Magazine. The emphasis of this each quarter when we bring it out is to look at performance measures to show how the department is performing on some of the key performance measures that we have in our strategic management plan. So if you go through the beginning of the plan, that's what under our big categories of safety and health, stewardship and efficiency, sustainability, livability and economy, system performance, and operational excellence. The intention there is not to blow our horn. The intention is to show you whether it's up, down, or indifferent, and it's warts and all. The rest of it does have, I guess you'd call them articles on the various things that are going on with the state and with Caltrans. Piece of news, as of yesterday, the RTP guidelines have been adopted, the new guidelines. These get done, I think probably, I don't remember when the last time they were done. The big changes in the 2017 RTP guidelines from the last batch, or I guess first I should say what they are. They are the guidelines that the planning agencies like the COG are given when preparing their RTP to make sure that you're addressing what the state and federal governments want addressed in the plans to show your stewardship of the money that you're getting and how you're using it for your projects. One of the big changes with this set of guidelines is that the metropolitan planning agencies and the smaller rural RTPAs are in separate documents now. One of the parts of preparing the regional transportation plan is a checklist of all of those things that we want addressed in the plan. When a rural RTPA uses the same checklist as one of the bigger city MPOs, there's a lot of NA, and I think some of that was to try to focus more on what it is that you actually need to do. Some of the others are updates just for the new authorizations since the last guidelines, the MAP 21 and the FAST Act. And there's some other new things. I won't go through all of those. To repeat on Matt and to steal more of Melissa's thunder, the FLAP, Federal Lands Access Program, is a federal program from what they call the Federal Lands Highway Division. Essentially, FHWA has programs to treat roads in the rest of the country. They have a special program for federal lands and access to federal lands. So the new call for projects, the applications are due April 7th, and we will of course work with the COG and make sure that we get the application in for the wagon trail. There are other potential eligible projects in the area. It's not just Caltrans. The county can apply for projects. The city can apply for projects. Tribes can apply for projects. So those are all possibilities. The next item is related to the FLAP. When the COG wants to get funding for projects for the region, they have to have an RTP showing what the priorities are for funding projects within the region. Federal Lands Highway Division has to do the exact same thing. They oversee 3 programs. One is the FLAP, Federal Lands Access Program. The other is Federal Lands Transportation Program, and then the Tribal Transportation Program. So they're all under that same division. They have all of those funds to allocate. So they want to show that what they're doing makes sense, that where there's jurisdictional boundaries, that the planning is crossing the jurisdictional boundaries, and we're getting a good big picture. So they are producing a plan called the Collaborative Long Range Transportation Plan. It's a federal plan, but it's roughly speaking an RTP for the federal lands. This particular one covers California, Arizona, and I think maybe Nevada. I'd have to look that up. So we're working with them to try to make sure that we capture needs in all of the regions within District 10. And from the department's point of view, most of that funding would be from the FLAP. That's the transportation that provides access to federal lands. So we want to be doing some outreach with federal agencies, with the local agencies, and with the COG to try to make sure we capture those needs. That's the other thing I should have mentioned on the FLAP. There are 2 webinars that are being offered by Federal Highways. One is Thursday, February 9th, 12 o'clock. The other Thursday, February 16th And I believe, Melissa, you've received the email on this. Certainly, if anyone hasn't received it, I can get that for you. Okay, the next item, this is something that we will be talking about a lot from Caltrans in the next year or two, and that is asset management under our SHOP program. That's the State Highway Operations and Protection Program, and that essentially funds, it's the state funding, or the funding that the state uses on the state highway system for culverts, pavement, bridges. There's many categories, but essentially the things that we do to keep the highway system going. Safety is the other big one. The way the program has traditionally run is there are all of these different programs within the SHOP. There's the culverts program, there's the bridges, and when you fund a project, it has to be about that program. There isn't any combining different things from the different pots of money. That is being changed for the 2020 SHOP. We still haven't reached the 2018 SHOP. We're preparing for that. So this is down the road, but it's also a big change that's coming. We're implementing something called asset management approach. The idea with that is simply that we pick significant needs and then we develop projects around an area of that need to make sure that we're addressing multiple needs associated with that larger project. The idea being that nobody likes to see the brand new pavement dug up to put a culvert in, and take that to all the extremes that you can get to. So we will be bringing more information. We have our asset manager has promised he's going to come out to the RTPAs. That will be a little while because they still want to firm up some of the details on how the program's going to work. But he will be coming out and giving a presentation to explain in more detail how that all is going to work. The other big change with the SHOP is that we're working much harder to make sure that we capture complete streets through the SHOP. And I think I've mentioned this before. One of our projects that's looking good. We don't have asset management under which to put this together, but Murphy's Highway 4 is looking like it's going to have a center turn lane from Big Trees and Tom Bell down to Pennsylvania Gulch. And looking at that, we have to widen the road. We have to put the pipes, the ditches on the side of the road need to be piped. There's a lot of work, and that's an opportunity for us to try to put sidewalks in there. Under asset management, that's how we're supposed to be working. That project is scheduled for the 2018 SHOP, so we don't have that program in which to work with, but we're doing our best to try to figure out how we're going to pay for that. But it's not a given at this point. But essentially, when we are looking at any of the projects that we internally are producing, we're looking through your bike plan, we're looking through your pedestrian plan, we're looking through your RTP, trying to identify opportunities to make our projects more complete streets, to bring in the transit plans also, whatever the needs are, to try to capture those. That doesn't necessarily mean that we've been given a whole heap more money with which to add a bunch of stuff to our projects, and that's a big challenge for us. There may be some conditions under which we'll be coming to the agencies or to the COG and saying, you know, we have an opportunity to do something great here. Is there a contribution? So those are all on the horizon. The, just we have an update for construction next year, the bigger projects that will be going on in Calaveras. These are, I believe, all going out to contract. Vista del Lago already is under contract, so these will be constructed next year. Signal at Vista del Lago and State Route 26.
Is there a begin date on that?
It's got to do with when the contractor is ready to go. It's already under contract.
So it's 2018 or?
It's spring of
2018
this year.
Of this year, so it's coming up this year,
Yeah.
okay.
So we already, excuse me, CCWD already moved the pipes and everything there,
Yeah.
if you recall.
So the idea was that we did the St. Andrews project this year and save that for the next year, so we wouldn't be.
I think all the electrical's done too, it's ready, it's shovel
Yeah.
ready.
And it may be that, I could go back and ask whether they have a definitive date, but it really has more to do with when the contractor's ready to go.
But it is spring of this year.
Yeah. On Highway 4 up at Big Trees Park, there's a long process we've gone through to develop a project. At Big Trees Creek, there's been an issue where the sand from the highway, from the sanding, winds up in the creek. So there's a project that's going to go in there to keep that sand out of the creek. It's been a problem with the water board. And so that should be going, I believe, next summer. And the other one is in Murphy's at Tom Bell and Big Trees. There's going to be some ADA improvements there. If you go there now and you look at the crosswalk and at the conditions of where it ends, you kind of wonder what was going on there, and that should be taking care of that. And I think that ought to do it for this time around. I thank you for your patience and any questions. Oh,
Council?
Would you please deliver a message to the powers that be at District 10?
yes.
Your Highway 4 crew did an excellent job in this last storms.
They actually set up this set of storms. They set up what we call the OEC, the EOC, the Emergency Operations Center. That's why I can't figure out what it means. Down in Stockton, and what that means, they had crews down there to help coordinate if there were big issues down in the valley, more than likely where the water's going, but also that they had maintenance on full call people, I think probably 24/7 out ready to deal with all that. So.
Supervisor Tofinelli, you were?
Good.
Well, I was just thinking about the ongoing issue with Fourth Crossing Bridge there on 49 between here and Angels Camp. It's been an ongoing problem or concern year over year with patching at the exit point on both northbound, southbound on that bridge. Continual concreting, et cetera, is really not resolved it. I hope there's more of a long-term solution than just to constantly come back and patch on that.
I'm not aware of it, but I'll bring it up with maintenance.
It was a closure area today,
Okay.
but it's been going on for a number of years, especially where the cars leave the bridge and transition on back onto the asphalt in that location.
Okay. I'll follow up with that.
Thank you.
Any other?
Yeah, I have a question pertaining to Burson, Highway 12 in Burson. About 12 or 15 years ago, there was an accident in front of the restaurant there, El Torreros, that took the lives of several people. And so Caltrans moved the speed limit sign back before that restaurant, way back to before you even approach where there's now a soils business there. Recently, last year, they picked up that 45-mile-an-hour zone and moved it all the way up to the church at a distance of about over a quarter of a mile. And now the speed limit where that accident occurred is now 55 miles an hour. It's back to where it was prior to that accident. Can we look into why that was moved and what criteria it takes for Caltrans to do that?
What, we had this recently with Supervisor Kearney brought it up, and the way the speed limits are set by state law, the speed trap laws, that they have to do the study, and essentially there was a recent study, and they have to set the speeds according to that. I can let the traffic safety know that there's a concern, and essentially the history there.
There is history there, and so I understand the 85th percentile in all the readings. I don't, but the safety aspect of it also, because of the accident, and there's been near accidents there since that's been moved. One happened right in front of me, and I had to pull over and help the lady. It was kind of a hit and run situation, and it was somebody trying to turn into that restaurant.
Okay.
And so it is very dangerous right there, moving it to 55 miles an hour, and obviously people kind of fudge on that. So the speeds are a little bit greater. And then it goes down in front of the church. And even so, I don't understand the situation of how that church has two easements onto Highway 12. One towards the restaurant and then one towards the post office. And you guys put the 45 mile an hour zone right in the center. So going out one side of that church is 45 miles an hour. Going out the other side is 55. It doesn't really make sense.
It 100% has to do with the data when they actually go out there and do the measurements. They've shown me the graphs, and essentially that's what they have to do is look at the graph and define the spot. And so I can pass along your concern. I don't know that I can promise you that I'll get a lot of change. It's one of those things that we're kind of hemmed in by the Streets and Highways Code.
And I understand that, but I will be bringing it up quite a bit. I work just down the road from District 10 offices. So another question, you brought up your shop, your 2020 shop, and the changes in it. Just to get a punchline in here, 3 years ahead of that, we have a project we're looking to fund in 2020, very large project. I think you were here when they were presented to us. We'll be needing culverts and bridge, and so just to get ahead of the spectrum here.
So to go into a little more detail, we haven't even programmed the 2018 shop, so the 2020 is out there. The 10.5 million that Matt was referring to was a pilot, essentially on how to address asset management through the shop. And so, as he said, that's been recommended. As all of you know, you don't have anything guaranteed until the CTC has allocated your funding, but so that is where we're going, and the good news is there's no more, you're not adding any lanes to the highway. That would kick you out of the program. But,
one last question from me. Is that an official Caltrans tie you have on?
no, that's the London Underground.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other council questions?
Yeah, it's interesting you said that, Commissioner, because I was along the same lines of the shop and the Wagon Trail project and how could we find funding, but I was going to take that offline, so I'll continue that discussion with the staff for a future point.
There's, to be clear on the shop, and when we look at RTPs, when you put your RTP together, you have to talk about what money you have and what you're going to do with it. And there's always question of what you do with the shop, because the truth is the plan should show the benefits to the region from funding of transportation, and money does come from the shop that gets expended in the region, and that should be in some way captured in the plan. Anything that's in tier 1 of the plan, the funded and ready to go, under the shop has to be programmed. It has to be the projects that we have in the pipe that are ready to go, that are funded. There is no such thing as the COG saying that Caltrans is going to use its money to do this other stuff. On the other hand, we get a lot of wish lists in the further years of the shop, which are, you know, we take them as suggestions of what are regional and local priorities, but that's the only money we have left that we decide ourselves what to do with. So that's not all of it, but that's essentially what the shop represents. The Caltrans is the money that we have to put together to make the system work, and so.
I do want to thank your crews for their very quick response to the potholes, especially along Highway 4. Fantastic job. I mean, they were on them within minutes sometimes.
Okay, and I haven't checked on 26. I don't suppose they have it. Is it open now?
Yeah, I think it's open.
Oh, did it?
Yeah, it was open today.
Yeah.
I think, yeah,
That's awesome.
it came.
Good job. That was a big project, so
Yeah.
good job.
That's pretty hard for a slope failure. Good stuff.
Carl, I have one other question. This is more with the regional transportation planning. Several years ago, we'd asked the question specifically for like San Andreas about putting stoplights in Highway 12 as it's going through San Andreas, or Highway 49. At that time, it was said that the strategy from Caltrans was that they frown upon stoplights on the state highways because it impedes the traffic flow. And yet I noticed in Jackson, over the last 6 months or so, they put in 2 more, if not 3 more, traffic lights on Highway 49 in the city of Jackson proper. As we're going through this RTP program, and specifically looking at towns like San Andreas, has that strategy from Caltrans changed so that if we were to look at that as an option, would it be frowned upon again, or is that something that's more viable today than it was a couple of years ago?
I guess I'd like to back away from frowned upon.
Okay.
To put in what we call intersection controls, which could be stops, stop signs, traffic signals, roundabouts, we have to look at warrants. There's a list of essentially numeric ways of looking at the data, how much traffic is on the side street, how much traffic is on the main line, and you know, we don't want people to have to wait forever to get out on the main line, but we also do want to prioritize keeping the main line moving. We also, those warrants take into account, you know, we have places where people really want us to put in a signal, and because it's hard, they don't feel safe. And when we look at that, we have to look at not just their perspective, but are we going to cause another problem? If you put in the signal and you know, you're coming downhill and around a corner to get to that signal, are you going to cause more accidents than the problem that you're trying to solve? So that's what those warrants really are all about, is making sure that we don't do tunnel vision, that we take in the big picture. So essentially that's what's happening there, is that you've got enough development that's created enough traffic to warrant that. So, you know, we are looking at the corridor plan on 49 through San Andreas and thinking about what kind of strategies we might have to do intersection controls is one of the interesting things there. One of the issues is with Mountain Ranch Road, that if you put a signal under the existing conditions there, then we do have people slowing down, coming down a hill into a signal, and you don't know, you know, how far the car is going to be backed up further into the corner.
May have to slow them up down at the old airport.
Yeah, so, you know, in looking at the potential for an intersection further back up somewhere in the airport road or even further back area, which, you know, announces you're in town now, time to slow down, time to start thinking. we don't know how all that works, but that's some of the kind of things that we're looking at, and the county's looking at to try to figure that out.
Chair? Using your criteria that you just spoke about, High School Street in the mornings and in the afternoons basically fits exactly what you just spoke about, and it needs to be studied by Caltrans on putting a stoplight there. There are near misses every day with high school students and their parents trying to exit out of High School Street. It's backed up all the way back to the parking lot sometimes in the afternoons, and the left-hand turn lane coming up 49 to turn on there in the morning backs the traffic up down the highway. So it fits exactly what you just explained. John, you agree with that?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
So in the longer term, we have a planning project to look at that, and that's part of what's going to come out of that is their recommendations. I could take this back to traffic safety and say I have a request to look at this short term right now. You know, if you'd like that, I can do that for you.
I would definitely like it.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention one of the things that we're doing a little bit differently with these planning grants that we haven't done in the past is we've got a great partnership with Caltrans District 10, and we are working with traffic ops specifically. So while we're designing these improvements for the corridor, and it's meant to be extensive and integrative and address all of the potential impacts that one change could potentially have on the entire corridor, we're working with traffic ops so that it's a realistic improvement that can be made on the state highway. We were really successful with the city's project. We did their gateway corridor study, and now they've moved into a project study report, and hopefully they'll have some buildable projects that will be coming out of that process. We hope the same is true for San Andreas. So, Amber, do you have any information on when we will be maybe releasing a draft or having a public meeting on the San Andreas planning process?
Yeah, we're hoping to have probably in March. With hopefully that report.
And I guess the other thing to, the other tie-in to make is we've talked before about our need to, when we did the overlay on 49, I think it was from Angels all the way to Mokelumne Hill, we had to leave out much of San Andreas because of the crown and the road has gotten too high. They can just put more asphalt on top. So that's a need. That is something that will show up as a target under the shop. So having a plan for how the sidewalks work, how any changes to encroachments on the road work, the whole thing is a great target for that kind of approach in the future. And to be honest, the time frame is
perfect.
Hopefully by then we'll have that system working well. And like I said, probably later in the spring or early summer, we'll have our asset manager come out and explain a little better than I can than how it's going to work.
Well, thank you.
Thank
so
you.
much. And I think along those lines tomorrow night.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay,
Any public
thanks.
questions? Gary, thank you. Council reports. Far end?
I just want to say it's an honor that I was reelected and put back into the vice chair position. Very much appreciated, and I thoroughly enjoyed being here.
Mr. Mills.
It's different sitting here versus sitting out there. Thank you.
I have nothing.
I have nothing to report.
I do. I've been talking to Melissa about SB1 and AB1, and that should be coming to council to take a position on that next week. And that has to do with the transportation funding that is coming through, which most of you should have heard about since the governor didn't attach the budget to include that. And hopefully we will have something to give staff from the city next week.
Perfect, thank you. That would be great.
I'm just happy to be here and have a lot to learn. That's about it.
Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
I too want to thank the council for reappointing me as the chair. It's been an educational experience, and I look forward to, as we go through the 2017 year, of trying to find some more creative funding strategies to get our projects to move forward, so thank you. Staff reports.
Perfect, I'll go ahead and start. I just wanted to introduce to the council our new administrative assistant, Sarah Davis, and her first day with us was Monday, and she has hit the ground running. So fortunately, she has an opportunity to train with Carly between now and March 2nd, so we're thankful to Carly for staying with us this last month. I wanted to also update the council that our orientation, typically every year we do an orientation for new board members. We have a great binder that we take a lot of pride in that describes who we are from A to Z and kind of simplifies our processes and cliff notes, so to speak. Unfortunately, that will be delayed this year. So will our mid-year report will also be delayed this year. Next month, we do plan to bring before you an amendment to our current overall work program. We will be bringing to you our LTF, Local Transportation Fund, financial audit, and we will be bringing our 17-18 draft budget and overall work program. We also will be working with our partners, Tuolumne and Amador County. Historically, the COG has taken the lead in hosting regional forums. We had a great event at Couts where we invited all of our partners from Tuolumne all the way to El Dorado to talk about, at that point in time, it was the looming transportation fiscal cliff. Well, it's official, we've fallen off of it, and we fell off of it probably a few years ago. We followed that meeting with a workshop at Greenhorn Creek about self-help funding opportunities and what the future of transportation looked like and how we would be able to rely on the state and federal government to support our projects in the future and our reliance on them becoming more and more difficult. We're seeing that. Jeff talked briefly about the changes in our funding and how it's becoming increasingly competitive. It's no longer about, the best political project. We have to have really hard-hitting competitive projects because we're competing statewide. So this year, we partnered with Tuolumne and Amador, so we plan on hosting another regional forum. It'll most likely be in one of our neighboring counties, but the goal will be the same, to educate and inform our policymakers on what the current issues are impacting transportation. We hope that what we can do is provide also a format for you to collaborate with your colleagues in the other counties, and maybe what we could do is lend some strength by developing a collaborative and integrative maybe policy platform, if that's possible. But ultimately, it's an opportunity that we can present to you what some of the issues and challenges are affecting our industry today. The other thing I just want to, we've talked a lot about, but the regional transportation plan, it's really important. So as we issue those project lists, please look to your communities, let us know where you have need, and also work with your public works director and your planning directors to make sure that they're aware. They may not know about those important projects. We want to get those reflected in our project list if possible. So that is important because, as we said, all of our funding comes from that comprehensive plan, and then the state sort of tiers their priority projects from what's included in our regional plan. So if there's any questions for me, I'd be happy to answer.
The question would be, what kind of lead time are you going to need on putting together that form?
Well, typically we have our forums around April. We're going down to meet with San Joaquin COG, and so I think from there we'll put together a game plan, but my hope would be early to springtime, April or May.
Okay, if you can
We
give
haven't
us,
set a date, though.
just give us roughly a 30-day notice,
Sure.
please.
Sure.
Thank you.
I'm being a former COG member and being part of, at a time when we had some odds with Amador County during the Tri-County association we had. I'm glad to see that we're going back and partnering with them, because at that time, before that, we had some good projects and found funding for it. Things kind of fell apart, but I'm hoping this time, going forward in forum, that we can partner up again and continue to partner, because it's a fantastic way to bring funds not only to our county, but their counties too, for projects. So that's good. I'm glad we're working towards that again.
Very good.
Okay.
Good. With that, we'll adjourn the meeting this evening. Our next meeting will be on March 1st in these chambers at 5:30. Thank you.